I open up this box, and dude, I'm as fucking dumb as it comes when it's doing this kind of stuff. I'm like the guy who's like, hey, I'll just plug it in, and you do the rest of the hard stuff.
Right.
You know?
Welcome back, Outliers, to a very special Vault Thrashing edition of Misery Point Radio. I trust you're enjoying your New Year so far, attempting to keep up with all of your unobtainable New Year's resolutions, and staying motivated to convince your social media friends that you are, in fact, going to be a better person this year. It's alright, I'm not judging you, any more than I already did anyway. And while it's always good to look forward to the future, sometimes you have to take that trip back in time and revisit the past, where your deepest, darkest secrets lie, in an attempt to breathe new life into remnants of things that rest in the vault. And you know, today we did just that. A little bit of digging up the past so that we can once again look into the future. You see, today's guest, Ray Currie, is, once again, someone who's been here before. And last year he hung out with me to talk about his band Outliar. We talked all things Outliar. We got the full story on how their epic album Taste of Blood came to be. And during that conversation we discussed their debut album, Provoked to Anger, and how he was never really happy with it. And so it was placed in the vault until it was ready to be, once again, unleashed upon the world. And now that time has come. On January 3rd, Outliar released their new EP, Thrashing the Vault, which is in essence a modern retelling of a fable from long ago. Also worth noting that Ray and I originally chatted back in December, so you'll be hearing us talk about its future release, but it is here, now, as well as some other tasty tidbits of some other cool things to come. So join me on this time-traveling quest as we dig, once again, into all things Outliar. Okay guys, welcome back to Misery Point Radio, and I am here once again with a very special guest who's been with me before, Mr. Ray Currie from thrash band Outliar. Ray, thanks for hanging out again today. I appreciate it, brother.
Hey, Mike, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, my friend.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a lot of cool stuff happening in the Outliar camp. Lots to talk about. But I guess first, let's dig into the immediate awesomeness. You know, last time you were on, you had talked about revisiting some history, giving us a new and improved taste of Provoked to Anger, and now with the launch of your new EP, you are actually delivering on that promise. So let's get us the gory details, brother. What's going on with you guys right now?
Yeah, cool, man. Some fun stuff for sure. I think, you know, as you said the last time that we had talked, you know, I had mentioned that we were thinking about selecting a couple songs off of that Provoked to Anger record that's basically vanished from existence with purpose there. So we went back up to the studio with Jamie King, who you now know as well. Mm-hmm. You know, I talked to Jamie and I said, hey, you know, we think we have, you know, maybe 4 songs from that record that are, you know, still relevant today. You know, we'd play shows, you know, locally here and there that, you know, people would, hey, what about that one song? You know, I haven't heard that in a while. You guys, you know, going to play that tonight? And, you know, especially at our level, you hate to not give people what they want to hear. Right. You know, and so we just continued to talk about it. I talked to Jamie. I said, you know, would it be, you know, something that's too obscure for a band at our level, you know, to go back and kind of not even remaster, but just kind of retool some songs that are only, you know, 4 or 5 years old, and you know, to really showcase them with the talent level that we have within the band now. And so Jamie was down with it as well, and we went up there and we recorded. I think it was there's 4 proper songs on the you know, on the EP, which will come out January 3rd, 2020.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think they sound good. We really, you know, we went back and you know, we re-recorded you know, obviously, you know, the vocals, the bass, the backups, you know, fixed some things, did a lot of things that just didn't make sense, you know, to give that stuff any credence any longer, and really just, you know, let people hear the songs the way they were intended to be heard, and, you know, put some surprises into the stuff now, you know, made some changes, you know, Anthony's vocals, are so much better than what was on that Provoked LP. And he's been the face of the band really, live, and so it was really important to give him the opportunity to make those songs his own, and I think he did a nice job.
Yeah. So, Thrashing the Vault.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a cool name, by the way, because
cool.
it evokes a vault, something that's locked away, which you have intentionally locked it away, and now you're going back to it, you're tearing it up, and so it's a perfect name. I just thought I'd let you know that I thought that was badass.
Yeah, that's cool, man. We were thinking about some things, and initially, something that kind of kept coming up was let's go back, and people say, hey, rehash, and I said, what about rethrashed? And we kind of like that, but then we said, well, and then we said, well, these songs are kind of from the vault, so obviously very easy to figure out. The artwork, the packaging, all that kind of stuff is pretty cool, and when people see it, we asked some of our biggest fans to send us some pictures. They've been kind enough to support, purchasing different merchandise and that kind of thing. So we made a nice little collage in there that I think people will really enjoy. And, that's really a testament to the fans from our end. Without them, obviously it's so cliche, but it's so true. Without them, we're nothing, right? Just you and I are talking and nobody's listening. So maybe one person will listen this time. But
welcome to the life of a podcaster.
But so we wanted to make sure that the fans knew that this is for them way more than it is for us, and so we think it's going to be fun. We've got a release show coming up, to properly release the record, both in the digital world and physical world, and then play a show and play these songs.
Yeah, and speaking of merch, you guys put together some pretty badass pre-order packages.
Yeah, we that's something that it's just kind of part of the game, right? We are fans ourselves, not necessarily of our band, but just, fans of other bands and merchandise and all those kind of things. And we certainly appreciate the support. The people who come out and buy the stuff and they're proud to wear it, and really advertising for the band. So we just try to do stuff as, competitively priced as we possibly can, and just give people something that they're happy to spend their money on, the pre-orders went well, and it's nice because you basically get the upfront money to cover the the cost, or a significant portion of the cost on the front side, and and we like to put everybody's names in the special thanks that jump on that. It's just it's cool. I know me as a fan, I've done that in the past for a number of bands, and I've always enjoyed doing that. It means something to the band for sure, and I can speak firsthand that it does for us as well.
Yeah, super badass. I'm waiting on my Faceless Enemy thrash pack as we speak. So
it's on the way. It's on the way for sure.
Awesome. So you talked a little bit about it being kind of not just a remaster, but a full reworking. So when did you guys officially start the process of going in and actually re-recording the tracks?
Yeah, so that was, I guess it was early, it might have been early 2000, no, we're in 2019. We did it in 2018, believe it or not. And
okay.
I think there was some thought that we said, hey, do we release these as just kind of singles? And then we just kind of sat on it. We had some cool things that happened for us since the last time that we talked. That got in the way of us trying to actually put a package together and give this a physical format release instead of doing the singles and downloads and what have you. So believe it or not, it was, God, I guess we were in the studio almost coming up on probably a year and a half ago with these, and it was funny because we were in the studio for Thrashing the Vault, and we were preparing to release Taste the Blood.
Okay, so that was kind of what I was getting at. I was like, it seems like there was some crossover, and you had two different concepts going on at one time there.
Yeah, and Taste the Blood was in the can, for a while, and we wanted to make sure that was really our, statement record that represented us as well as it did. We were playing the songs live before the record had come out, and and then it just so happened that just sometimes the way that these things work between shows and, different, different situations that had popped up, we said, hey, let's go through. And really, we thought about it internally. We said, let's put Taste of Blood out. I think it was in the summer of 18. And then we thought, hey, let's put out this EP in 19. And then we just said, well, as much as Taste the Blood is a little bit worn out on us, it's really not worn out on the fans at this point because they've only had it for a short period of time. So we just thought we'd kind of be shooting ourselves in the foot if we put out this EP of songs that we went back and basically rethrashed. Really, we thought it'd be kind of shooting ourselves in the foot if we put that out too early in 2019, and then through 19 we had some couple dates that it just didn't make sense. So we said, hey, you know what, let's get this thing set up and let's do it literally as soon as we can in 2020, which is why we selected January 3rd.
Okay, awesome. So this material, how long has it been officially finished for as far as the recording process goes?
So the recording itself, like I said, I think we wrapped up in the studio, at the very latest, probably mid-year 2018. Okay. And then Jamie and I kind of went back and forth, and it's fairly typical for me to listen to it 100 times over to a point where I hate the record.
You hate it, yeah.
Immensely. And then I sit here, I just put it down for a little bit, and then I just go back, and there's certain things, obviously with the advent of Pro Tools over the years and that kind of thing. So it's nice to just say, hey, you know what, turn this down, remove this, do this, that kind of thing. And I want to say that he and I put the real finishing touches on what people will hear. I guess probably late summer of 19. Okay. So probably four or 5 months ago at this point, and we just decided not to put it out until January. So, so it's really been done for, let's say, 4 to 5 months, but the us in the studio component, it dates back to 18.
So you've been sitting on it. I mean, has this just been an itch? Like, God, I can't fucking wait to release this thing. I know it's ready to go.
Yeah, it's been an itch, but not as much of an itch as Taste the Blood was. Holy cow. Yeah. It's been an itch just because really what we want to do with Outliar present day is we want to kind of, I know we've got some pretty big shows coming up and we can get into that, but we kind of want to take a little bit of a break really and just focus on writing what we consider to be record number 2, but, in proper release form, it'd be number 3. And really just start to showcase a lot more of what I think exists within the band now. A lot of kind of, Master of Puppets inspired dual harmony type guitar stuff, a lot of those kind of things.
Which I already told you before that I fucking love that stuff. So
yeah. So, it'll be interesting. We'll do some of that stuff with these songs when we play them live. There's going to be more. I didn't have a second guitar player way back when I did these originally. So it's nice to have Rick in the fold and know that he's fully capable of doing the stuff with me. So I'm excited about that. It's actually giving this stuff new life. But so to answer your question, sitting on it for a while, thankfully it'll be out here soon enough, and we're really going to work all through 2020 with hope to get into the studio in early 21 to put out record 3.
Yeah, and while you're that's so awesome. While you guys were recording this, I meant to ask you also. So you redid the vocals, you redid some bass tracks, but you didn't really do anything as far as like the guitars or the main drum parts or anything.
Yeah, that's correct. I as I've told anybody about this that I've spoken to on the other side of it, I just kind of felt like it was almost like a jigsaw puzzle was put together, glued and framed, and then we decided if we decide to go back and redo the drums and all this kind of stuff. Adam is so much of a better drummer than the original drummer who laid those tracks down. But it just didn't make any sense. It was honestly, it was throwing good money after bad, I thought, sure. Maybe throwing bad money after good. I don't know. But I just didn't think it made a lot of sense to go back and have him basically match up with what he's doing. He does things a little bit differently, of course. But it wasn't significant enough to say, hey, let's go and do that, because let's save that for the next record and show people what they see live. Sure. So that was really it. Bass for sure had to go. The person who was in the band at the time, it just wasn't the right fit, and life goes on. Right. But the bass stuff now, I mean, it's got the attack, and Jamie and I talked a lot about that, and he said that was the thing that he was most excited to see happen for these songs. He said, because there was never any attack on that original recording, so now it's there. it's punchy, I think.
Yeah, and so now that it's all re-recorded, he also did a full-on remastering package as well.
Oh,
so
certainly.
It is a complete brand new take on the material.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, Jamie and anybody who knows his work, with Between the Buried and Me and, Contortionist and every other band that he's worked with, he's got a standard of excellence that I think is fairly unsurpassed. I'm certainly biased toward Jamie, but, Jamie, he's like, hey, it's basically he just took this, might have been a classic car, let's say, and he just took it through and said, hey, I've got a lot of new tools that I can, apply to this. And that's what he did. And I mean, it's got some ferocious attack, in my opinion. I think some of the songs on this thing rival what's on Taste of Blood, really.
Well, he is the sixth member of Outlier, so
no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Big expectations, I'm sure. And so now that you've got these unholy tracks of Outlier past reforged in infernal metal, I assume that they're taking on a new life at your live shows.
Yeah, they definitely will. And in fact, the first time that well, I shouldn't say the first time, actually. There's there's two songs that we've been playing, here and there over this past year at some different dates. We say, hey, you know what, let's kind of preview these. And so we played them, but they'll take on new life once this is officially released.
Awesome. And we're going to hear one of these songs right now. This track is called A Loss of Sincerity. Check it out.
Sound
Yeah, killer. Well, speaking of shows, so you got some big stuff coming down the pike here. Well, let's talk about your CD release show. Tell us the details on that guy.
Sure. So we've got a show at the Lincoln Theater here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Great venue, sounds amazing. It's a really nice bill. There's some local bands that are joining us. So it's 5 local bands, which is kind of nice, and there's a band called War with an O, WOR, kind of like Lamb of God. They've got they kind of are all over the place, some thrash, some metalcore, some, all sorts of stuff. And they're releasing a record as well, I believe. So it's kind of like a dual release show, and they draw fairly well around here. There's some excitement around them, and really good guys. And then the other 3 bands, Aragon, Inanimous, and Among the Machines are 3 other local bands that all play something a little different from one another: thrash, doom, traditional metal type stuff. So I think it's a little bit of something for everybody, and it'll be a nice way to kick off the new year.
Oh, awesome. And then, of course, we've got your dream project coming down here in March with Vio-Lence.
Yeah, that's something that is otherworldly. It was something that anybody who knows me and has followed Outliar and that kind of thing, they know that there's we tip our cap to Bay Area thrash constantly, and we're not a carbon copy of Bay Area thrash bands, but I think we smack of them in a lot of different ways. We kind of have our toes in the water and death metal, thrash metal, and kind of everything in between. Things that just really have a hook and some dynamics to it. That's kind of where we live, I think. And Bay Area thrash certainly influenced all of that for me and the writing style that I have. And at the top of that list is Vio-Lence. Strolling back to 2017 when news got out that Sean Killian, that they were doing a benefit show for Sean Killian, the singer of Vio-Lence. Went out there, and a really long, crazy story short, got connected with Craig Lacicero of Forbidden fame.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a great band called Dress the Dead that is different from Forbidden, but incredibly killer. I'd urge everybody to check that out once that's ready. But nevertheless, Craig was cool enough to incorporate me into that. He knew that I was a big fan, knew I was a big supporter of Sean's fundraising, activities here on the East Coast, and just was able to connect with a lot of those folks, and did some benefit show here for Sean as well in 17 with another band that actually one of Jamie King's bands as well, Gross Reality, very, very good thrash band.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Yep, and so we did that show with Gross Reality as well as Aragon, now that I remember, and we raised some money, sent it out, and lo and behold, Sean gets a liver transplant. Things are on the up, and a year later they do a couple of reunion shows in Oakland, California that sold out in 5 seconds,
right?
Almost literally. And so we went out there, and it was a nice kind of reunion of some friends that we had made in the last year plus before those shows. And so I just started to kind of figure out that Vio-Lence has got some energy behind this right now, and they're doing shows, and it's not a what do you want to say, a sympathy party, right? It's not going to see Vio-Lence. It's like, hey, they did okay. It was okay for guys that haven't played together. I mean, you went out there, and this is me speaking from experience of seeing them in 1990 compared to when I saw them in 2018, and I will tell you undoubtedly they were better in 2018 than they were in 1990, and that's not me just being a fanboy. That's me telling the truth. Sean sounded amazing. Perry, their drummer, sounded amazing. I mean, obviously Phil, is great and well seasoned. His days with Machine Head and obviously Vio-Lence. And then Dean and Ray. I mean, they just sound amazing. So I just started to kind of kick the idea around in late 2018 about what would it take to get them to Raleigh. And, I feel like there's, a fairly decent thrash following here in Raleigh, North Carolina, Richmond, Virginia, Tampa, Florida, all these kind of areas that aren't too far from here. And so I wanted to see what it took to get them here. And, fairly decent friends with Sean's wife, Dana, through all of this over the last few years. And, I told her, I said, hey, maybe pass a message to Phil and see if he's got some interest in maybe coming down to Raleigh and what would it take. And we just, talked some business and kicked some dates around. And then Sean and I, got on the phone and really hammered out the details to make that happen on Friday, March 20th, 2020. Set for a local bar here called the Poorhouse, which is, holds about 300 people, let's say. This show, it's selling well this far out in advance, which is very encouraging. We expect it to sell out, be a full capacity show. It'll take a little bit of time until we get closer to the show, of course. But excitement level seems to be high. Everybody I've talked to around here. We're going to be the direct support to Vio-Lence. And I've also put Gross Reality on the bill. We really wanted to represent the Raleigh thrash, as best as we could. And, people that were literally around when Vio-Lence was playing in 1990, no slight on anybody who's, bringing up the new thrash brigade and all that. But, this is a show for, everybody who is, who grew up and lived through those times and, was able to really appreciate what's happening here. So, I wish I could put so many other bands on it, but it would be, a 3-day festival with Vio-Lence at the end of it. Yeah. And, so we're excited. We think we're doing the proper thing here. And, by having the bands that are on the bill and just, we expect it to be a fairly successful thing and hopefully put Raleigh on the map for a lot of big shows to come.
Yeah, it sounds killer. And I think the way that you put it to me when you had initially told me about the show was that this was a lifelong dream for you to have this show.
Yeah, for sure. I have to pinch myself, here and there, realizing that, that I'll be sharing the stage with these guys, but it's so much bigger than, just me for sure. But, but I'm glad to, be in a position to, to pull this thing together, my business background and, just being in the scene for 30 years, kind of knew what buttons to push and, want to make this a lucrative enough deal for Vio-Lence, but also, put Raleigh on the map and, who knows, maybe they come back around, next year. But, it's interesting because it's not a tour stop, right? It's a one-off show and, that makes this really unique.
Didn't you tell me that they've never actually played in Raleigh before?
Definitely never in North Carolina, and more than likely not many times, if any, in the southeastern United States. So, they had some, business dealings. I certainly don't want to speak for Vio-Lence, but, they had some business dealings back in the, the time when they were, kind of hitting on all cylinders and, probably went left when they should have gone right, so to speak. And, and so, and this is all chronicled in their, DVD. I think it's called Blood and Dirt. And they get into it. It's fairly personal stuff, but it says, that, hey, we didn't make the best decisions at the time. We're a bunch of young kids and stuff, so I don't know that I don't know how much touring they did in this area. So a lot of people, when we've told people about it and they're hearing about it for the first time, they're just like, are you serious? Like I've seen this, on different threads, the Vio-Lence, it's like, yeah. The one with the hyphen.
The one with the hyphen. Whoa. So, it's really funny that, I talk about this with a lot of people, but what's old is new, and there's just this huge resurgence of bands that have always been around, but they may not have been as prevalent as they once were. And then all of a sudden, 2018 rolls around, and heavy hitters they're back in full effect, and it's awesome. And I remember when Vio-Lence was out, and they kind of got buried, I think, in the heyday of that Bay Area thrash, because there was just so much stuff happening. But I would say that they've achieved what I refer to as cult status for sure. Just one of those bands that never got the recognition they deserved worldwide, but every time you hear about them, people are just always just singing the praises of this band.
Yeah, it's the only polarization I think that band ever experienced was Sean Killian's vocal delivery. You have to keep in mind at that time that there were bands like Nuclear Assault, Forbidden, all these kind of different bands that were out that some people loved the vocal delivery, like myself, and other people hated it, right? Sure. And the people I think that dislike, Vio-Lence vocals are in the minority, but there are some people that's like, it's not for me. But I've never once heard anybody say, I don't like the music, I don't like the band. I mean, it's kind of like, man, Vio-Lence is awesome. I mean, you look at the threads and, the shitty people that comment on Blabbermouth and all these kind of, garbage sites or whatever, you know, that
Right.
everybody's got something to fucking hate. And, you know, but I will say, which is astonishing to me, because I was reading all the different posts, you know, everybody's always trying to be some jackass funny guy who has no sense of humor. But I'll tell you, every Vio-Lence post on Blabbermouth, there was not one person who had shit to say. I mean, and that's astonishing today, right? You know, granted, you know, Vio-Lence is not Disturbed popular, right? You know, but nobody's in these, you know, chats. I'll just read through and look at these comments, and nobody's saying, I fucking hate that band, they suck or whatever. So it's really, you know, to your point, I mean, I think they're a cult status band, and you know, and you know, let's hope that this gets them fired up to maybe release some stuff. I mean, because these guys, they have the chops to do it by all means.
Right.
They're not playing watered down shit. I mean, these dudes they're in it for sure, and they're, you know, they can't tour because of their personal lives, which I can totally appreciate. But they pick their spots, and the spots are killer. Every show they're playing, they're selling out all of the shirts, and we've got some cool shirts playing for Raleigh as well. We expect the same. So it just made all the sense in the world, and we couldn't be happier to be a part of it.
Yeah, and you know, I wasn't going to dig into this, but since you brought it up, just regarding, you know, his vocal style, which I've always liked, but you know, that era was so experimental, and I think that's really where metal started dividing into so many subgenres, because you had thrash that had the screams, right? But then you also had the thrash that had it was half singing. It was like the Chuck Billy who could do the vocals but could sing the clean. And then you had, you know, Bobby Blitz from Overkill with the shrieks, and then you had Joey Belladonna with his high-pitched stuff, and then you had all these guys, and then, you know, Russ from Forbidden doing all this stuff, and it went so many different directions, and that's actually what I liked about that era of thrash, because it had a lot of different flavors to it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You know, and I think you know, another band I'd throw in there, you know, somebody I've gotten the opportunity to get to know a little bit too is Heathen, right?
Yeah.
You know, Dave is an absolutely killer vocalist. As a matter of fact, I think they're in the studio right now. I know they are. They're in the studio finishing up a record right now, which I just absolutely cannot wait for. But you know, it was funny you mentioned that. I remember, you know, being young and saying, okay, well, that band's a progressive thrash band, or that band is a power thrash band,
yeah,
and that band's proper thrash, like all this kind of things. And, you know, and you look back, I mean, I think that was the best thing about that time frame is again, I'll reference Nuclear Assault. You know, you had bands like that had just a delivery that nobody could touch, right? And some people hated it, but most people fucking loved it, myself included. You know, and you don't hear that as much anymore. You know, it's more of an aggressive, you know, Phil Anselmo inspired, you know, Randy Bly, Lamb of God inspired type stuff. And I know, you know, our detractors, you know, will blame us for that, but man, it just fits with our stuff. But yeah, you know, I mean, that was awesome. Everything was unique. There wasn't 100,000 bands. There were only, you know, 120.
Yeah, and it's definitely become quite saturated, and which makes it all the more difficult for you guys to get out there and book venues and play shows and be able to keep it going. I mean, we all know that this is not where the money is, that's for sure. People do this as a passion project, and I love to see bands that have been around for a while still doing it, and yeah, that's absolutely killer. So, as far as Outliar goes, you know, so with the new EP. The new old EP, I don't even know how to call it anymore. Is it new? Is it old? What the fuck is it? You know,
yeah, exactly.
And you know, these new shows. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but then so we're looking forward to you guys writing some new material. Is new material officially in the works?
There's there definitely have been some riffs, you know, some very, very what do you want to say, Bush League recordings. And, you know, we're just, you know, start really fleshing things out at this point. And, you know, everybody in this band, believe it or not, plays the guitar, all 5 of us.
Holy shit.
And, yeah, so we've got some different points of inflection. You know, I can tell you, you know, sitting down with, you know, our drummer, Adam, showing him some different ideas that I have. And he said, hey, you know, what do you think about this finishing point? You know, and he grabs my guitar, you know, and starts playing it. And I realized, I was like, wow, like if this dude, you know, 10 years ago, if I met him, I would ask him to be the other fucking guitar player in the band. I mean, he's that good. So, you know, so everybody has a different point of inflection. And so I'm really, really interested to see what this stuff's going to sound like. I would say on the surface, I think there's a little bit of a concerted effort to maybe write songs that are a little bit shorter. Not that, Taste of Blood was long, right? It was 60 minutes, but
Yeah.
that's kind of an homage to, again, Master of Puppets. I think the record was the same thing. It was, it seems as though the songs end up kind of that sweet spot for the tunes is usually about 6 minutes or so, let's say. And there were a couple that were longer. I think this record, we want to attack more than we did on Taste of Blood. I think there's some really aggressive stuff on Taste of Blood, but I think this one, I think there's a different level of attack that we can bring. And we know each other better, and we know our strengths and, our weaknesses, I think. And, we're just more comfortable with each other naturally. So I think the writing process, although it's early in the game, I do believe that it will start to manifest itself. And once it starts coming, I think it's going to keep coming. And, like I said, we would love to have an entire record written by the end of the year. And I've talked to Jamie about setting time aside in 2021 to get back there. So that's definitely the focus. After the Vio-Lence show, and I would expect we've got a couple of things that we're kicking around in terms of whether we want to participate, throughout 2020 in a couple different shows. We don't want to oversaturate ourselves. That's big for us. People have choices. They don't have unlimited amounts of money to spend. So you got to pick your spots. You don't want to go out and play the same 9 songs that you did, 2 months ago. People are like, I saw it 2 months ago. And, it loses its luster, not just for the fans, but for us as well. We want to share something. But to that end, we also don't want to go out and play 8 of the new 9 songs that hit this next record, let's say, and play them live all throughout 2020 and then record it in 2021. We want to keep the surprise there this time.
Yeah, well, it needs to have some form of feeling still new by the time it comes out.
That's right.
Yeah, maybe you could do some Vio-Lence covers, to kind of tide you over until that stuff drops. So it's interesting. Also, you mentioned about everybody playing guitar in your band. I think everybody playing. I've run into this now quite a bit where bands are cross playing their instruments quite a bit, and it adds to the writing dynamic to be able to say, nobody hates stuff more than when somebody else comes up and says, you should do this fucking drum part, and your drummer's like, fuck you, you don't play drums. And then all of a sudden you go, oh yeah, actually, let me show you this, and you mentioned your drummer is a fantastic guitarist, and I had the same situation back when I was playing years ago when I was jamming with this dude, and one day he says, let me borrow your guitar, and I handed him my guitar, and I'm like, motherfucker, you're just better than me. It was kind of pissed me off, actually. But and I guess that whole, just the dynamics of drummers specifically, they just are so keen on the multitasking element, they can just do so much. But I love the fact that you guys can all kind of actually illustrate and show each other different parts and bounce those things off and have it come from a place where it actually makes sense, rather than have your singer go, yeah, so hit Tom and go do yeah, do that,
I know it all too well. It's and it's so funny. And actually, I think within our band, I don't know about Cisco and Anthony if they play the drums as well, but I know Rick and I also play the drums. So that's always a fun conversation with Adam. Adam's like, fuck you, I'll do what I want, in jest. But no, it's there's cohesion there. And I think everybody is saying, hey, like, how do we write some new stuff? And, we're just waiting for that, switch to get flipped. And, it's tough to say, hey, let's not focus on writing, when we've got a couple of these really special things coming up, right? With the, the album or the EP coming out, doing an EP release show, which, for all intents and purposes, outside of the Vio-Lence show, I don't know that we're going to play in Raleigh again for the rest of 2020. That's kind of our plan, really, unless something special comes around, if there's a national slot that needs some, decent local support or what have you. But outside of that, I think our goal is to really just do exactly that. Just play these couple of shows and really just, hunker down and write. We've got the talent in the room. Let's get it going. And, I think people will enjoy it, and we're looking forward to it probably more than our fans.
Yeah, right. You're gonna fucking hear this when it comes out. I'm just saying. Yeah, so this isn't one of those things where you're sitting on the new album already, right? You're not teasing me with that. It's already done. It's already ready. You guys are just gonna wait a year to release it.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've had too much of that for the last 2 releases that we just don't ever want to do that again, and so yeah, no, this is definitely it has not yet been written. There's a lot of like riff diarrhea, I'd say. There's hey, I've got this, I've got that, and I mean, I wake up and, grab my phone and sing a riff into the phone. It's that kind of stuff, and then I'll pick it up a month later and be like, oh shit, I forgot about that riff,
So that needs to become like B-side audio excerpts of you singing riffs into your phone that you release as like extra Patreon content or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we're super serious though. We don't do stuff like that on records,
Yeah, of course not. No, of course not. So you've got this plan, loosely based anyway, plan for what you're going to do for 2020. And I know I'm probably thinking way far ahead, but have you started thinking about, again, maybe introducing some guest musicians into the fold for this upcoming project?
There's a couple people that I wanted to work with. We had that crazy instrumental on the last record on Taste of Blood, and I did a lot of those guitar solos. And I'm a decent player. I'm not a virtuoso dude. Would never pretend to be. And so I was like, man, I could probably put like 6 or 7 guys on this that really can make this thing just super cool, right? Give everybody just this hodgepodge of solos and stuff. And, so I think there's some people that I've got in mind to reach out to, potentially, but it may not even be in the form of guitars this time. It may be in the form of, dual vocal lines.
Oh, sweet.
So, yeah. So, I certainly, I've got those ideas. I've just got to hear how it would fit. I don't want to do the Max Cavalera, Soulfly model where, every album had a guest vocalist or 3. And, people, it becomes there's a number of different polarizing opinions on that, right? People think, oh, you're doing it to, make yourself relevant, and you basically sell your record based on some person coming on the record and doing something. But that's not it for us at all. It's just like, hey, who would be cool to work with? And, are they interested in doing it? And, some people like to do that. They're like, hey, I'd like to be a part of this, band that not a ton of people have heard of. And they're like, but, we kind of dig it and we like them. So maybe get somebody on there to do some cool vocals.
Yeah. I was going back just a couple of weeks ago. I found some old the James Murphy solo albums, and I was listening. Yeah, I was listening to those, and I was like, "Holy fuck! I forgot Chuck Billy was on there." And there was just so many other cool people that were involved, and I for one am a fan of the different directions that some of those take. It's different when you're a solo artist because people kind of expect that. So yeah, you definitely don't want to overstate it as an artist where you're focusing on your own material. But Faceless Enemy, though, just saying that song still sounds fucking killer.
Yeah. James Murphy, right?
Yeah.
What could be said about James that hasn't already been said? Not really much of anything. So James is just he's been my idol forever. I'm lucky enough to know him on a personal level. He's I would consider him a good friend. Every time I hear that solo, I just remember what it was like listening to him lay that thing down. And I've got some old FaceTime videos of seeing him flesh some things out. And,
yeah.
It was always cool to just I haven't watched him obviously in years, but it's just the guy is just amazing, and that just sounds killer. It's like
I was just listening to it before we got on the horn, so I was like, oh yeah, it just sounds really good. So cool. Well, I for one am crazy excited about what you guys have in the works. Of course, I will continue to be a supporter. What haven't we talked about? Did I miss anything? I feel like there's just so much to talk about with what's going on with you guys. What else do we need to plug for you?
I just think, obviously you've done a great job of, everything in terms of supporting us. Mike, we love you for it. We love Misery Point Radio. You do so much for so many bands on the up, and, our great buddies in False Prophet who are just knocking the fucking doors off right now. Direct support tour with Obituary. I love those guys. I couldn't be more proud of them. And, that being said, we owe you all the thanks in the world. But, in terms of our stuff, people can check us out. Obviously we're on all the social media norms, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, Instagram, whatever, outliermetal.com, and we've still got, we didn't do a ton of physical copies because, people unfortunately not buying CDs as much as they used to. But
buy CDs, motherfuckers.
It's cool, right? You can get people to sign them and all that shit, But,
yeah.
we just went up to the Death Angel show in Richmond, Virginia. I bought everybody's CD up there just because, it's cool. It sends the band down the road. But I just think 2020 is an interesting year. I think there's some interesting things always going on in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. The metal scene is alive and well here. There's a lot of camaraderie, a lot of bands going on here, and obviously the Vio-Lence show is a monster one for us. Just obviously pay attention to the website, see if there's any kind of updates. We'll probably have our way of sneaking onto some national shows coming through here throughout 2020, but we're really looking forward to just putting our heads down and getting this thing going. Just kind of seeing what it sounds like. We're as excited as everybody else could possibly be. So again, Mike, thanks for everything, man. We appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys check out outliermetal.com for some killer merch. Check out their Facebook page. Check them out on the Instagrams. Social media, stock them. You can still buy physical stuff, and you should. So as always, Ray, thanks again, brother. It's always cool to talk to you. And anytime you got something to pimp out, I'll pimp out your shit. So,
hey, Mike, thanks a lot, man. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Well, there you have it. One more pile of awesomeness brought to you courtesy of Ray Currie and Outlier. Do yourselves a favor, go pick up the Thrashing the Vault EP, and for fuck's sake, go see them live March 20th in Raleigh, North Carolina with metal legends Vio-Lence. And of course, do me the solid. If you like Misery Point Radio, please subscribe to the show, share it on all the social media stuff, and do your part for the world. And now, this track, Faceless Enemy, featuring legendary shredder James Murphy.
Catastrophe strikes,